In southern Gaza, a new layer of suffering has emerged as heavy rains pounded the already devastated landscape of Khan Younis. On Saturday morning, dozens of tents sheltering displaced Palestinian families in the Al-Mawasi area were submerged under sudden and intense flooding. These makeshift shelters, weakened by months of bombardment and built from thin materials that were never meant to withstand harsh weather, quickly filled with cold, muddy water. Families scrambled to salvage what little they had left: blankets, clothing, mattresses, many of them already worn from 2 years of constant displacement and repeated relocation. Footage from the scene shows long rows of tents beaten by heavy rain, with residents attempting to take shelter beneath torn canvas roofs. In some tents, water poured directly through gaps in the ceiling, soaking bedding and forcing families to stand for hours just to keep from sleeping in water. In others, Palestinians used buckets, small bowls, and even their own hands to push rising water out of their makeshift homes. Outside, pathways turned into muddy streams as children and adults alike tried to dig shallow channels to divert the floodwaters. A Palestinian man spoke to reporters while crouched inside his tent, warming himself beside a small gas burner. He explained that the cold had become unbearable and that the rainwater had destroyed what little food they had managed to save. Nearby, a woman pointed to the soaked clothing, blankets, and supplies scattered inside her tent. She explained that every storm brings the same fear, that the walls and roof will collapse entirely. Her children sat beside her on a wet mattress, shivering in the cold. According to Gaza Civil Defense, emergency teams responded to dozens of calls throughout the morning. Their report confirmed that multiple sections of the Al-Mawasi camps were partially flooded, with some tents taking on enough water to become uninhabitable overnight. Yet, with thousands of families displaced and few alternatives available, most residents remained in their damaged shelters, attempting to patch leaks and sweep water away as the storm continued. The situation is especially dire because the Gaza Strip has been struck by a low-pressure system since early Friday, bringing prolonged rain and a cold air mass that has settled over the region. For the 1.5 million displaced people living mostly in makeshift tents, the storm has turned daily survival into a nearly impossible challenge. The Gaza Government Media Office estimates that 93% of all displacement tents, 125,000 out of 135,000, are no longer suitable for shelter. Many of them have already been weakened by repeated Israeli strikes over the past 2 years. The combination of structural damage, harsh weather, and overcrowding has created conditions in which even basic protection from the elements is nearly unattainable. UNRWA, the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, issued an urgent statement calling for the immediate entry of shelter materials into Gaza. The agency highlighted that tents, tarps, and mobile homes are desperately needed, especially as winter conditions worsen. However, Israeli authorities continue to block these materials from entering the enclave, despite obligations under the ceasefire agreement that took effect on October 10th. This blockade has left families exposed to the elements at the very moment they need support the most. Residents describe spending nights awake, moving from corner to corner of their tents to avoid incoming water. They say they fear that, if the rains continue, outbreaks of illness will quickly follow. Many families do not have access to dry clothing, clean blankets, or safe heating methods. Entire communities rely on improvised drainage systems that rarely succeed in diverting the water for long. Parents expressed worry not only about the physical conditions, but also about the psychological toll on their children. After 2 years of bombardment, displacement, and insecurity, the fear sparked by storms and flooding adds yet another trauma to an already overwhelming situation. Israel's bombardment has killed more than 69,000 Palestinians since October 2023, most of them women and children. Much of Gaza has been reduced to rubble, leaving civilians with no option but to create temporary shelters wherever they can. The flooding in Al-Mawasi is only the latest hardship in what humanitarian groups describe as an unprecedented catastrophe. As the storm clears, residents will once again attempt to dry what remains of their belongings, repair their tents with scraps of plastic and cloth, and prepare for the next wave of rain. For the families of Khan Younis, Saturday's flooding was not just a weather event. It was a reminder that even nature has become an adversary in their struggle to survive. This is the current reality in Gaza, a population trapped between conflict, displacement, and now the forces of winter, with no meaningful relief in sight.
طلع عمرك طلع البركه اطوله 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 على الله مكانه وقع برساله كله يروح تركرتش تكرر اي ندخل جوا
زي ما انت شايف شو ايش بده يصير معانا. زي ما انت شايف كل المي والوسخ كله والامطار كلها علينا. كنا نايمين يا عم في امان زي ما انت شايف. مش عارف الواحد ايش بده يحكي. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل بس. برا المي تحت الشوادر تحت الفرشات. الطنيات قاموا كلياتهم الصغار كلياتهم قاموا مي. طلع صار برش وقاعدين من السقع. فش ولا حاجه. طلع المي طلع تحت الشوادر طلع تحت برا واحنا نايمين برا. بدها اكثر من هيك. وين المنظمات؟ وين اللي بسموها بالهدنه؟ هاي الهدنه هدنه من دون شيء مقابل. والناس الحين ضايلين زي ما احنا. وين الهدنه؟ ايش المستفيدين من هالهدنه؟ ولا واحد رجع على بيته ولا على ارضه. ايش بدنا فيها الهدنه؟ هدنه واحنا ناسحين زي ما احنا؟ ملهاش لازمه. شركة خان يونس بدناش هدنه ملهاش قيمه. هدنه بلا قيمه. هاي صورتك وهي الكاميرا تاعتك. هدنه بلا قيمه بدناش اياها يا عم. الزمناش لما ربنا ياخذنا. والله علي ما ترضاش لسه الله ياخذنا ارحم شوي. قبل اليهود والله انا شايف كيف هذول العرب القطه قبل اليهود. اللي بالدعوه